Good day everyone, I am Ronino Dolan and my fellow reporters Lloyd J. Balanquet, Ana Joy Bantilio, Persiane Dilema, and Jacqueline Atencio. We're about to present some literatures that depict or mirror our society nowadays. Ever since I was small, stories have been a part of my life. Reading storybooks before bed became a part of my natural order, where I could escape into another world. To say the least, not much has changed, and most nights I love to read to find that escape away from the reality. But literature is more than that. It has transcended time and it's still with us, forming critical parts of today's curriculums. So what relevance does literature have in modern society? Here are some short stories and summarizations depicting social realities.
In today's generation, we are fascinated of the things that are happening in our life. We are facing so many changes as the years pass by, and innovations introduced by the human mind are overwhelming us. As a result, wide range of different technologies are present and continuously developing in our world, from the smallest nanotechnology up to the massive industrial technologies. We cannot deny the fact that technology helps us in our daily living. It makes our life easier. In our day-to-day basis, we depend so much on technology's assistance, from light bulbs, faucet, electric fan, electric kettle, television, etc. But the most prevalent is phone. Today, phone is not just bare necessity. It is truly necessary to have phone in this era. Now everything is in digital format. Banking, e-wallet, conversation, everything you could imagine. It is now available into your hands. That's why phone existence is a great ease for us. Indeed, technology helps us all throughout, to the point that we become dependent and addicted on it. But mind you, too much and too less might bring harm to us. Like on the short story that we will tackle today. It depicts how overusage and dependency on technology ruin a family. The title of the story is The Wealth, written by an American author, Mr. Ray Bradbury, which appeared on September 23, 1950, with its original name of The World the Children Made on an issue of the Saturday Evening Post. It was republished as its current name in 1951 under the anthology entitled The Illustrated Man. Story time. There once was a family whose head is Mr. George Hadley. He lives with his wife Lydia together with their children named Peter and Wendy. They bought a house, the Happy Life Home in particular, for $30,000 wherein everything is included. At first he thought, oh, just normal family thing. They're just moving to another house. Nothing special about it. But to tell you, the house is a sort of automated house. It is full of advanced technologies that's the nearly thing you can do is to breathe in it. The house is a machine for cooking of food, automatic body wash, an automated table, and an automated printer machine. Even climbing upstairs, you can just get into a tube and it will descend you to the second floor of the house. And anything you can imagine that could replace daily human activities are present on that house. But there's something that is very unique on that house that costs half of the price of the entirety. That is the nursery. An extreme realistic room that exhibits most realistic surroundings, ambience, feelings, sound, and smell of a certain place or thing you might think of. One day, Mrs. Lydia speaks to her husband about her worries on the nursery. She is agitated on how her kids were changed by that room. She convinced her husband to inspect the room. At first, they saw a plain room, but as they placed themselves at the center, the room transformed to an African veld. A savanna that contains a realistic life and creatures, grass that seems to be real, the feeling of a real sun, and animals roaming on a real savanna, the smell of an animal, dust, and blood. Afterwards, the lions came running at them that causes Mrs. Lydia to run across the door and exit the room. Mr. George ran too. They closed the room and talked about what they can do. They decided to close the room for a week and have a vacation with the whole family. Meanwhile, Peter and Wendy came from a trip. Their father asked them about the Africa in the nursery, but they are in denial about it. The children entered the nursery to inspect. When they get back, they told their father that it's not Africa anymore. Their father walked to the nursery and it surprises him because it changed to a lovely forest. Mr. George sees his wallet on that forest. It has bite marks and blood from the lions on the previous belt. The parents were convinced that the room is depicting the children's imagination into reality. On that night, they went to their bed but couldn't sleep. The children are sneaking to the room at night. The parents are hearing awfully familiar screams from the room. The next morning, Peter confronts his father to not lock the nursery. But Peter's attitude changed when his father told him that he will do so. Mr. George and Lydia invite David McLean, a psychologist, the next morning. Here, Mr. George tells everything to him about what's happening on his children. David told him that they have spoiled their children too much. The nursery became their parents, and they were nothing to them. In the nursery, David picked up a bloody scarf that belongs to Mrs. Lydia. The two men went to control box and switched the nursery off and the entire house. The children gone wild, crying and screaming, and even threw some things. Peter even cursed his father to death. Lydia asked her husband to turn it once again while packing for their trip. She tells her husband to look at the kids while they're on their nursery. She went upstairs to get dressed. Mr. George follows. Suddenly, they hear calls of their children. They immediately went to the nursery, wherein the African veld is being depicted. They didn't see their kids in the room. Then suddenly the door closed loudly. They were locked from the outside. They tried to open the door, but it couldn't. They cried for help from their children, but it seems that they are not listening and won't mind on what's happening. The lions attacked them. They scream and realize why those screams sounds familiar to them. David went back to the house to help them sent to the airport. He saw the children having some picnic at the center of the room. He asked where are their parents. They told him that they will back for a moment. At a far distance, David saw lions fighting over something and are feeding in silence under the shade of trees. Then Wendy asked him for a tea. The ending is open-ended, but you can convey thoughts on what happened to the parents. Perhaps their children let them be mercilessly eaten by the lions on that extreme realistic room. This short story depicts the social reality that we are experiencing nowadays. Most of us are addicted to technologies, for it brings us the convenience in life. But because of this addiction, we cannot see the negative effects that it can bring to our life. For instance, I have read some posts on Facebook telling that their kids are having seizure because of too much exposure to cell phones. Some gamers tend to skip meals just to play online games all day. Also, because of new technology, the internet in particular, we can bring harm to others. Bullying is now possible online. Our attitudes change because of our addiction and dependence to technology. We tend to be lazy and annoyed by small things. We consume more hours tapping our phones, streaming, gaming, and browsing the net than doing physical activities. Though modern technologies bridge the gap among people overseas, it also disconnects families' interaction. Some of the families now are hesitant to start a personal conversation among its members. At last, this short story wants to warn us about the negative effects of technology in our life, as well as being a responsible and purposeful technology user.
Persiana Dilemma will going to discuss her chosen topic, a short story, summarization, and critical analysis, titled Make Room by Harry Harrison.
It was really the first book, fiction or non-fiction, about overpopulation that I encountered. Came from an Indian he met after the war in 1946. He told him that overpopulation is the big problem coming up in the world. Well, nobody had ever heard of it in those days. And he said, Want to make a lot of money, Harry? You have to import rubber contraceptives to India. He didn't mind making money, but he didn't want to be the rubber king of India. But I started reading a bit about overpopulation and got the idea for the book. It stayed in my head as I watched the population trend going the wrong way. Make Room presents a gripping scenario of where current trends may be leading. Such scenarios are important tools in helping us to think about the future and in bringing home to people the possible consequences of our collective behavior. When such a serious goal can be achieved through an engrossing work of fiction, we are doubly rewarded. Thank you, Harry Harrison.
Miss Anna Joy Bantelo, we're going to discuss her chosen short story by Malini Vintakaraman, Azamerization.
I have chosen a short story that depicts environmental problem. The short story is entitled The Future of the Present, written by Malini Venkataraman. By the title itself, it portrays the prediction about the environment in the future. The story have two main characters, which is Chuto and Pinky. So, the story revolves around the journey of Chuto and Pinky in an unfamiliar place. We can see that the main characters went through time traveling. For when they woke up from their unconsciousness, when Chuto pressed the tiny button from the old thing that resembles remote of a car, they already in a deserted land, where no signs of people nor animals, and even the trees are hardly visible. There were only two thorny bushes. The main character's journey became fearful when they encountered and chased by a monster in that unfamiliar place. The monster introduced himself as the garbage monster, for it was made of junk, electronic waste, and all kinds of garbage. The monster said that he was made by the recklessness behavior and carelessness of human, from dumping all waste on earth, pollution, throwing electronic waste, and cut down trees. When they get back to their room, the characters felt relieved at the same time, felt scared witnessing such event like that. As said in the story, what they had witnessed was the state of Earth if humans did not protect the environment from pollution and dumping waste. Clearly, the short story is an eye-opener to its reader. It shows what will be our future environment if we fail to protect it and continues to go blind and irresponsible. The story portrays that we, humans, and our actions are the creators of monsters. Just for example is in this pandemic, the COVID-19. I believe that we don't just create viruses with the chemicals, because even unclean and abused environment do create monster and virus. Now that we also rely on technologies, people tend to throw electronic waste instead of improvising and remodeling. I guess there are people who's just thinking of the present development and disregard its effect in the near future. Let's reflect on our actions and listen to the song Masdan Mo Ang Kapaligiran. From its lyrics, hindi na masama ang pag-unlad kung hindi nakakasira ng kalikasan. We should always consider the after effect of our actions, because there's always a but in every improvement. Yes, we seek for development, but as I believe, development does not just rely on tall buildings and other new infrastructures and new invented technologies. It has to be viewed holistically, because what would be the use of this so-called development if it will destroy the place we live in? The environmental problems that are mentioned in the short story can lead to Earth's destruction, and we wouldn't want that to happen. Because if we continue to exploit nature, just imagine how will our action affect our future environment. Just like what Pinky said to Chuto, we should do something on our part to save our Earth. There's also a TV commercial that has dialogue saying, change doesn't just happen by typing comments. Hashtags can't plant trees. Tweets won't clean ocean. For real change to happen, we all need to play our part and get dirty. That dialogue itself reminds us that words imposed without action cannot make an improvement nor development.
Miss Jacqueline Atencio, we're going to discuss her chosen short story titled The Kite Runner.
Good day, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Atencio, and I'm going to tell you about the story of the kite runner. The chapter highlights two important lines. For you 1,000 times over, and there is a way to be good again. Amir, a young man from Afghanistan who needs to find his way in the world as he realized that his own belief system is not that of his dominant culture. Set in Afghanistan in the United States. The Kite Runner is a Bildung romance that illustrates the similarities as the differences between the countries and the two vastly culture. Although it's hard to get along with the other culture and sometimes we get bullied by being different from them, seems like this novel are relevant in a modern society because it addresses Islam in the lives of Afghans. The Kite Runner is full of alienation, betrayal, class issues, both cultural and socioeconomic, the emotional intensity of childhood affections, preserving as a motivator, forgiveness, friendship, the inherent nature of human evil, jealousy, lust of innocence, love, manipulation, redemption, and the rule of religion and revenge. But whatever consequences we are facing, just focus on the goals of what we become in the future. Behind those complex experiences, the love will prevail. Love is a significant emotion in the Kite Runner. It motivates the characters to overcome their problems and create a bond between one another, especially nowadays. We need a hand to hold to overcome our problems. We need an interaction with the people that surrounds us to ease stress and difficulties that we face now. A relationship seek by many and cherished by all. Our world are not fair, especially and treating human. For instance, you are not belong in white people if your skin is black. So they look you as a slave, but this mindset changed by those people who are strong and is not affected. It also deals with the way people who are different treat one another, as well as the effect ethnic and religious conflict has on individual societies. Forgiveness. It is known for us to forgive, let go negative feelings toward the one who hurt us. We have all been in a situation where we had to make a choice to forgive someone, like in the story of Amir, spent most of his life trying to forgive himself for not helping his friend while he was assaulted. Ispen Hassan is physically and sexually assaulted by Asaf. Asaf tells Hassan, "I'm in a mood to forgive." Soon after, he says, "Of course, nothing is free in this world, and my pardon comes with a small price." We just talk about between good and evil, and we must choose good over evil and truth over lies. For the sake also of our family or relatives like that, and for the sake of the people. and for the sake of everyone's life. We need every child get the freedom to do what she wants to do. The world will be a different place. We need to learn to accept people as they are. There's always a way to be a good again. We all make mistakes, and there is a way to redeem our wrong actions. Life goes on, that's all. That's life. Unmindful of beginning and success, crisis moving forward is important. Life continues to move on. So should we.
As people encounter so much problems and new experiences, writing a literary piece became their resort and instrument to unleash all their thoughts and grievances in life and the society they live in. Literature represents human life, its environment, and the moving status of the society. We can refer to it as the documentation of all the events and happening within the society. Through different literatures as well, we are able to view and reflect upon the social realities that it depicts. It connects us to the society that we live in and give us knowledge with the problems it may have. Consequently, having the sense of responsibility and form ideas that can be an initiative to resolve these problems.